Well, hey there, I am Jennifer Roskamp, a certified life coach and homeschool mom of 9 who is passionate about helping women just like you embrace the here and now while also being focused on creating the life you actually want. In reality, it's not about thinking life will get so much better or so much easier when you fill in the blank. Let's work on creating a life you love now. So let's dive in and get started on redefining Supermom to be someone who is present, intentional, and content rather than perfect in our homes, in our lives, and in our own skin. Let's get started. This is the Intentional Mom Podcast.
So, what I'm going to share with you here today is something that I share in day 3 of the Write a New Chapter Challenge. And it is straight up life coaching. So, as a life coach, my job is to help you and everybody see and find your truth. And at times, the only way to do this is to get bold and blunt because sometimes the truth is hard to see. And honestly, sometimes the lies are just easier to believe. But it's when we understand truth that we are able to be intentional in the choices we make. And so, even the title of this podcast was bold, right? But my goal with it was to intentionally get your attention because my mission is to get these truths and others like them out to women, especially midlife women who are realizing that they're ready for more. I'm tired of just accepting things the way as they are. Or maybe I want things in life and I want to figure out how to get those things. And so I'm glad you're here. And if there's another woman you know who has just been settling in life, well, you should make it your mission to share this episode with her. Just let her know she can listen to this episode wherever she listens to podcasts. So let's dive in with some honest truth, some bold coaching, and really with what could be the next 20 minutes or so that will change your life. Let's get started. All right. Well, after that bold introduction, let's jump in. Settling. Are you someone who is settling? Do you ever find yourself wondering, why am I putting up with this? Do you ever find yourself stuck in the same struggles or trying to make changes and maybe starting to do that, but then falling back into your old ways? Or what about this one? What about those times where you have the best intentions, but when you show up to take action, it's just too much effort? You might struggle to find motivation, you might have fears of failure, or you're just experiencing a season, maybe even a prolonged season where everything just feels hard. You feel burdened, tired, overwhelmed, and maybe even some shame and guilt that you've let yourself and others down. But at the end of the day, you just feel so powerless to do anything about it. Well, friend, this episode is for you. So here's where we're going today. And if you don't have something to take notes with, hit pause and go grab that. Because I've got some truths and I've got some concepts to understand and some information that really does have the power to change your life all in this one episode. And if that sounds like a big promise, it is, but I can say with 100% certainty and 100% accuracy that this is true. Because I've seen these things change my life and the lives of my coaching clients and the lives of countless women who have come through the Write a New Chapter Challenge. By the way, that challenge has now ended, but if you would like to take this challenge with us next time, you want to make sure you're on the waiting list for being notified about that. So check the comments, check the show notes for that. You can get up on that waiting list. Here's what we know to be true. It's when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the perceived pain that making a change will cost us that we actually make changes. If you don't want to make changes, well, you're signing up for the same results. You're signing up for the same situations. You're signing up for the same crappy life if you're not making changes. There's a little bold truth for you. All right, so let's jump into these planned truths here. Truth number 1. The action that you do and don't take starts as a thought in your mind. The action that you do and don't take start as a thought in your mind. So often we think it's about the thing. We think it's about what we're doing. We think it's about what we're not doing. And we think that's where it started. But in reality, all of the things that you do or don't do start as a thought in your mind first. Truth number 2. If we know that first truth to be true, then here's this one. You are just one thought away from different results. You are just one thought away from different results. And in reality, these truths empower you and me and everyone who is listening to be able to write a new chapter, start over, get a fresh start. It starts with a decision. Thoughts, decisions. They kind of are interchangeable here. Here's what you need to understand, though. These are simple truths. These are simple concepts to understand. Action isn't going to be as simple in most cases. Understand that. Second thing to understand, you are the only one who can decide this. You are the only one who can decide to write a new chapter. You are the only one who can decide to take an action. You're the only one who can decide this. Third thing to understand, decision means commitment. Decision means commitment. What is commitment? Really, at the end of the day, commitment is these things. Commitment really is where the rubber meets the road. Commitment keeps you writing the present and future you want when you don't feel like it or it feels hard. Whatever it is you're trying to take action on, you're not going to feel like it all the time. And it's going to feel hard some of the time, maybe a lot of the time. But commitment is what helps you show up and do it anyway. That's what commitment is. And really, commitment is the long-term and strategic form of willpower. Have you ever tried to do something based on willpower alone? This is usually how we do it. Whatever it is we're trying to do, we try to muster up and kind of bully ourselves into doing something. That's willpower. I just need to do it. Just need to suck it up and do it. Not saying that's a bad conversation to have with yourself, but if that's all you have, that's willpower, and that's not going to last you for the long haul. Commitment often starts with willpower first, but remember, it's not a new way of doing things we're focused on. We're not focused on a new way of doing things. This is what I call treating the symptoms. It's a new way of thinking that solves the real problem. It's not just doing it different. That's not where we should focus. We need to focus on thinking about it, whatever it is that you want to do, whatever that action is. You need to start by thinking about it differently before you try to do it differently. Because it's when we have our thoughts on board first that we actually create lasting change. And that's what we need. Because it's so hard, it's so easy to fall back into old ways of doing things. Ever tried something and only gone back to the way things used to be, the way you used to do it? Maybe at first you stick with a new habit. But then, how often do you start going back to the way you used to do it? It happens all the time. And it's because we don't have our minds on board first. And it's because we don't have that commitment. Commitment to doing it differently, commitment to showing up and putting forth the effort needed is what brings the change and therefore brings the results you're after. Here's some more truths for you. Truth number 1, your brain's job is to keep you safe, happy, and comfortable. This is how your brain is wired. And it will try to keep you there. Your brain is going to try to keep you in your comfort zone. Your brain is going to try to keep you from doing things that are going to cause even temporary discomfort. So when those are the arguments, when those are the things that are popping up in your head when you're trying to start a new habit that's going to challenge you a bit, when your brain starts serving you things like, oh, you don't need to get that workout in. You didn't get good sleep last night. Or maybe it's so hot outside, or it's so cold outside. Those things could be true, but your brain doesn't care about that. Your brain cares about the fact that you're going to be comfortable. It tries to remind you of all those reasons not to get the workout in, not to go out for that walk, not to eat the healthy food, not to start dealing with your clutter. It's going to be so hard. There's so many things that are going to make you feel emotional. Or your brain is going to try to tell you You might use that again someday. That might be true. But if you've decided that you want the results that come from less clutter, you can't listen to that. So your brain's job is to keep you safe, happy, and comfortable. That's truth number 1 here. Truth number 2 here. In most cases, this one's going to sting, and I'm not going to apologize ahead of time, by the way. Truth number 2. In most cases, what keeps you safe, happy, and comfortable will not result in creating the life you want. If you do not want that crappy life anymore, whatever feels crappy to you, if you don't want that, know that that means you're going to have to feel unsafe. You're going to have to feel uncomfortable. And you're going to have to feel unhappy in order to get that. Because in most cases, what keeps you safe, happy, and comfortable will not result in creating the life you want. You know this, though. You've done hard things before. You've gotten results. You've overcome obstacles. You've done hard things. You've achieved goals, even ones that you thought you could never achieve. You've done that. You've already done this. I'm just reminding you of what you already know and giving you a lot of context and foundation behind how you got to that result. It wasn't just based on all the things you did. And I'm giving you an easier path. If you want to achieve the things you want to achieve, getting your thoughts and your mind on board first will make that path and that journey easier. So truth number 3, understanding and internalizing these truths that I've shared with you already, and these few that are going to follow, will help you create the life you want. Thinking things that keep you safe, happy, and comfortable will not result in creating the life you want, but what will is understanding and internalizing these truths and a couple of these other ones I'm going to share. That is what will help you create that life that you want. Truth number 4, creating that life will cost you something. And I'm not going to apologize for that either. And in reality, I'm not telling you something you don't already know. You know that in order to lose weight, it's going to cost you something. You know that in order to deal with that clutter, it's going to cost you something. You know that in order to improve your marriage, it's going to cost you something. You know that in order to waste less time, it's going to cost you something. You know, in order to go back to school and get that degree, it's going to cost you something. All of those things, they're going to cost you something. Creating the life that you want will cost you something. Just accept it. And understand that all of this means that you will have to get into what I call the driver's seat. This is where you decide where your life is going and who you are. See, most of us spend our lives, and much of our lives anyway, in the back seat where life is happening to you. If you think things like, this is just the best it's going to be, I guess I just have a crappy life. I guess this is just the way it is. I guess this is just the way that I am. Well, I tried. If you're used to having conversations like this with yourself, you're in the backseat. And don't feel bad, because most people spend their entire lives there not even realizing the power that they have inside themselves. And this is what I'm giving you today, is that power, because I am telling you that your thoughts are where you need to focus. I'm giving you some powerful truths and some powerful thoughts to understand that will help you be able to trade in the feelings you're feeling. Feelings like frustration, overwhelm, stress, anxiety, sad, discouraged, alone, isolated. All of those things. Those are feelings that probably you choose to not have them. You can trade those in. You can feel things like peace, joy, contentment, satisfaction, happiness, calm, organized, in control, accomplished, proud. You can feel all of those things. But those things, those thoughts are ones that come from the driver's seat, because life is going to, by default, give you plenty of circumstances and opportunities to have those other thoughts. But you have to decide which thoughts result in the feelings and actions. Which feelings and actions do you actually want? Which feelings, actions, and results do you want? It means that you are going to have to be the one to get in the driver's seat and think different thoughts so that you can have different feelings, so that you can take different actions, so that you can achieve different results. And know that you have these two parts of your brain, right? You have your essentially proactive brain and reactive brain. Your reactive brain really is that in the moment brain. It's the brain that typically shows up for most everything you do. It's typically the part of your brain that is the active part of your brain because it's the loudest voice. And for most of us, we didn't even realize that we had these two different types of brains. So you have your in the moment brain. And again, that's the brain, part of the brain, that's the piece of your brain that will always say no to things. Almost always, right? Unless it's the case where saying no will actually be to your benefit. Your brain will often encourage you to say no, to not take the actions, to not think the thoughts that will serve you. Because what did we say a little bit ago? It's going to cost you something. And your brain doesn't want you paying anything out. Your brain would, again, prefer that you just keep on keeping on. And if you've ever thought things like, well, I guess it's going okay. It could be worse. What if it could be better? Ever thought about that? Ever allowed yourself to think something like that? There's always that possibility. But know that in the moment brain, again, it's going to try to keep you in the backseat. And so you are going to have to determine if the costs, remember how I said creating the life you want is going to cost you something? You have to decide if those costs are worth it to you. You have to identify what they are, but at the end of the day, you're going to have to be the one to decide if you actually want to pay those costs or not. Are the results worth it to you? And then commitment steps in, like we already talked about. But understand that between this kind of in the moment brain and your more strategic brain, understand that your strategic brain can win the argument. But here's the thing, it's not going to win the argument from the back seat. It's not going to win the argument when you continue to entertain thoughts like, oh, it's going to be so hard. It's going to take so much time. You've tried that before. And it's not worked out. That's just not possible for you. And all kinds of these thoughts, negative self-talk. Man, that is backseat living. How easily can you move forward to where you're actually trying to go when you are burdened with negative self-talk? Man, is it hard to go forward? Why not make it easier on yourself? Life has enough challenges of its own. Why not equip yourself with the thoughts that are going to serve you rather than strangle you? Why not choose to live life in the driver's seat rather than the back seat? Because your thoughts are not just extraneously put in your mind. Nobody can put thoughts in your mind but you. You are deciding the thoughts that are in there, and you have to be the one to decide whether they're serving you or not. But these truths that I've shared with you here today are so huge in understanding. And if you can understand and truly accept and internalize these thoughts, you are well on your way to getting in that driver's seat and to stepping outside of that life you're just accepting because you think there's no other way. I've shown you the way today. I've shown you what's possible. It doesn't have to be the way that it is. These are some amazing truths. These are some amazing concepts to internalize. And if you didn't already take notes, I suggest you go back and listen to this episode again and take notes. Save this podcast, download this podcast, because it is going to empower you when commitment needs to show up. It is going to empower you when it feels so much easier to go back to the old ways of thinking and the old ways of doing things. But I will say again, if you're not experiencing the life you really want, why would you choose the old ways of thinking and the old ways of doing things? Because when you choose those things, guess what you're going to get? The same results you always have. If what you want is different results, you've got to do it differently. These truths, these concepts to understand will help you do that. This is straight up life coaching today, you guys. I love giving you these deep concepts and thoughts to understand, because these truths really are things that we need to understand in order to be able to achieve those different results. Most times we don't understand things about our brain. We don't understand that many of the things we're accepting as reality are actually things we've chosen. And when you understand that they're things that you've chosen, well, then you also understand, you know what? I can choose differently. If I'm the one choosing, if I'm the one in the driver's seat, I get to decide where I'm going. Most people don't even know that there's a difference. And so I'm excited to share this here with you today. So if you're someone who has settled, if you're someone who thinks that life is just as good as it gets, if you're someone who thinks this is just the way it is, listen to this episode again. Internalize these truths, live by these truths, get your thoughts on board, get control of your brain, get control of creating the life you actually want to create. You've been given this life, and it's happening and unfolding regardless of whether or not you make any choices. Why not be the one to make the choices? That's what I've shared with you today. Thanks so much for joining. We'll talk again in the next episode. Bye. Well, those were some deep, deep life coaching concepts for you. But there is something that is so freeing and so empowering about truths along with mantras. Two things that are so helpful. Both are focused on you taking control of your mind, you taking control of your thoughts. Again, with the understanding that, you know what, if I can just control my thoughts, well, then my entire trajectory changes and my entire outcome changes just by changing the thoughts. It's not about the things you do and don't do. You're exerting way too much effort if that's where your focus is. Take the easy way out. I'm truly giving you the lazy way out here and saying, you know what? Before you worry about the things you are and are not doing, let's focus on your thoughts. It makes those things you're trying to do or not do so much easier. And who doesn't want an easy button? This is the easy button for you here today. Thanks so much for joining. Make it an amazing day.